there, welcome to the program. This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com is the website. You go there and find out all the wonderful classes that you can take online, self-directed classes, or give Sheila a call, 651-775-9194. That's 651-775-9194. Give her a ring-a-ling-a-ling. She'd be happy to steer you in the right direction. Here on Our Healthy Homes, we study the 4 pillars of a healthy home, the house, of course, your ecosystem in that house, your body, and your mind and spirit. All need to be in place and strong, or you've got problems, and the roof is coming down.
You're getting ice dams.
You're going to get some ice dams, and you're going to have some problems. Those are structural problems.
Right.
All right, so today in the studio, we've got Dave Wick and Dave Sherman, Disability Consultant Solutions. We're going to have a conversation, among other things. We're going to be talking about planning for what is sure to come.
Yes.
Because it comes for all of us. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. I don't know which category this fits into. What do you think, you guys? Is it mind and spirit, is body, or one of those two kind of crosses over, right?
Both of those, and housing.
And housing.
Yes,
There
right,
you go.
right, yes.
Okay, you got something coming up, Sheila, you
I
want
got
to share?
2 things I want to come up with.
Okay.
So learn about all things oils on a Zoom with us Monday the 13th. Go to ourhealthyhomes.com, click on the events tab, and register for that. We will answer your questions and just go through some basics. And then February 18th is Mystery Wine Night. So you come and you bring 2 bottles of wine, and we taste test them, and the mystery wine, or the winner of the person that brought the wine that scores the highest, gets to take home all the wine. Now, when you go to ourhealthyhomes.com and you see that event, it does say grab a girlfriend. It really is. You can grab your husband, because I don't want you home all alone.
No.
without any men around.
That's right.
So,
well, you get a bunch of women in the house liquored up, I might get lucky.
So you can bring your husband, significant other, whatever you want, even though it says grab a girlfriend. And 7 o'clock, February 18th, if you haven't done anything for Valentine's Day, you didn't make any plans, come and join us for that. It'll just be a fun night. And Keith and I don't drink, so I'll have some mocktails there as well. And you can bring a non-alcoholic wine. Wouldn't that be fun if that's the one that won?
That would be interesting.
That would be great if that's the one that won. So ourhealthyhomes.com, click on events, and all the info is there, and there's a green button to register.
Okay, so we have the 2 Daves on the program. So David and David, Dave and Dave, Dave Wick and Dave Sherman. So it's going to be DW or DS, right? And so
Okay.
I'm
That's how we're going to handle it
I want
today.
a little
Or I
background
can be
here.
David and he can be Dave.
Okay,
Whatever
David
you
and
wish.
Dave.
Whatever
All
you
right.
wish.
They'll know by the number. So I'm going to just get to know you a little bit. So where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you come from? Just kind of give us a little bit of just a 360 down of, so we know kind of where you are, where you're at.
Yeah, so my name is David Sherman. I grew up in Canada, Toronto, Canada. That's where my whole family is still. If you detect an accent without and about or a, you'll know right away
Okay.
that I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
north of International Falls in Bemidji and Ely. So grew up there. My wife and I met back in 1988. We were married in 1989. We moved here to Minnesota because most of her family was here. And we have 2 children, Mayam, who's 30. She's married and lives up in Duluth. We have a son, Noah, who's 26. He's temporarily back home having us do his laundry for him before he moves back to Colorado.
Okay.
And
No one lives in Canada.
all my family, my parents and everybody. I'm the
Okay.
only one that defected.
Okay.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, so you came down. How'd you meet?
My wife and I?
Yeah.
Well, on your text sheet, we probably only have a few minutes here. So I'll be very
Brief.
So I was working as an intern at a carriage trade portrait studio in
Okay.
downtown Toronto, part of my internship because I was into portrait photography.
All right.
And she came in to have her
Oh.
green card photo taken so
Wow.
she could come here
Oh.
and be with her parents and her family.
Okay.
And this was about 5 years after I gave my life to the Lord, so I was praying
Oh,
Mhm.
nice.
and waiting
Oh, nice.
and on my knees
Nice.
for many years, and I looked down. Oh, no ring. That's number 1 criteria.
There you go.
And then I got the idea that instead of just letting her go, I'm going to say, hey, would you mind if I just get your phone number to put on the receipt here? Sometimes we have problems with negatives and everything
you are
afterwards, so we may
slick.
have to call you.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So sure enough, she did have problems with the photos, came back.
Oh, no.
I said, good, I'll give you a call.
Was that intentional? Did you intentionally have problems with No? Okay.
I'm going to share that answer with you, Keith, off the air.
Okay.
Okay. All right. There you go.
And
The rest
then,
is history, they
The rest
say.
is history. We spent 2 weeks on the phone just talking and praying and seeing if it was really the Lord that brought us
Aw.
together
Oh, wonderful.
before we even went on our first date.
Oh, for crying out loud.
She was the one that was hesitant. I was ready to go on the first date like that night.
Okay.
That's
No,
awesome.
need to pray about it. I want to make sure it's from the Lord, and that, which was very prudent. And I tell her this almost 34 years later. I'm glad you prayed about it
Yeah.
because
That's
it's a
important.
good thing that we're
Yeah.
equally yoked.
Yeah. Right.
Dave?
Yeah.
Same
I'm
question.
From, I'm from south of the Twin Cities.
Okay.
I'm from Iowa.
Okay.
Oh,
And
we're
don't
at.
hold
We
that
won't hold
against
it
me.
against
We're
you.
at- we're
We're in
at.
Iowa.
Dubuque, Iowa.
Okay.
Oh, I love Dubuque.
It's a great place.
It is a great
It's
place.
a great place to be from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a better place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've been up here since right after school, which was a long time ago.
So you're an attorney.
I'm an attorney.
Where'd you go to law school?
Iowa, University of Iowa, Hawkeyes.
Okay.
So,
I have relatives in Lansing and Dubuque.
okay.
Yep, the whole
okay.
area. So been there, done that. Yep.
So, yeah. So I have a son who's he's doing his own laundry,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
a good thing.
Yep.
But
Yep.
still at your house?
No, no. He lives on his own. He lives in a house, I guess, in Richfield. I
Okay.
think. So, yeah. So he's doing well, and we are getting together occasionally. And
Nice.
a little while ago, we went to the Timberwolves game.
Good
It was
deal.
a great game.
Yeah.
I don't follow the Timberwolves. Now I'm starting to.
Ah,
So when,
there you go.
so when you got out of law school, where did you practice, or just kind of what happened?
The Twin
right after?
Cities.
Okay, so
I have a twin brother, and actually I wanted to be a ski bum
Okay.
in Colorado. But that didn't work out, so so I moved up here.
okay.
It's
He
probably
lives in
better that it
Stillwater.
didn't work out. Yeah. It's probably better it didn't work out.
So anyway, I guess there is something about twins that there's a connection.
Yes,
Yeah,
there is.
there is. We have
Yeah,
twins.
We have twins.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
there's a big connection.
So anyway, I never thought I'd move into same places, same vicinity as he did, but I am. I'm
Yeah.
here, so and I've been here ever since.
That's cool.
So did you? What area of law then do you practice?
I practice in elder law, special needs law, benefits, probate, trusts.
What got you into the special? I mean, that's how we met. Was at a special needs kind of event, but what brought you to that?
Good question. Because when I went to school, it didn't exist.
Oh.
We never learned one thing
Oh.
about it. And what happened was, first of all, I had many clients coming in crisis or
Oh.
their families because of a disability.
Mm.
And sometimes that involved children, sometimes parents. And over time, I got really interested in that area, and it felt good when I was able to help people.
Mhm.
And then I've done that really for 20 years.
So when you are, so you came out, you're just practicing general law.
General law.
General law.
Yeah. And then I actually did that for about 5 years, and then I went back to
with
school.
a different firm or on your own, or
Well, a mixture.
okay, okay,
And then I decided I needed to specialize.
okay.
I can't use that word ethically. I can't say I'm a specialist.
You're just focusing on this area of
Right,
law
right.
that
Niching.
is particular interest to you. It's
Niche.
just, you're niching.
Yeah.
I like
you're
that. I love that
niching.
word.
Niching.
So I went back and I got a tax degree from the U of M,
Okay.
and after that, I started doing a bunch of tax work
Sure.
and estate tax stuff.
Because it all does tie together.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we got to go out to break. When we come
Wow,
back,
that went
we'll
fast.
find out how the Daves met and how they moved down into this area of disability consulting services.
Brother
This is
Darryl and your
Our
other brother
Healthy
Darryl.
Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194, 651-775-9194. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Check out that website. It's a super duper website. I just love that site. 651-775-9194. That's a super duper phone number, too, because it's a lovely and talented Sheila's phone number, and you can give her a ring-a-ling-a-ling.
I've had some great conversations recently with our listeners.
Really?
So thank you for calling. It has been a treat and a pleasure.
People think, God, can I really call? Is that really her cell phone? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is, and
Yes,
I really
it
do
is.
answer it.
All right. 4 pillars of a healthy house, of a healthy home: your house, your ecosystem, your body, your mind, and spirit. We're going to cover most of those today. Okay, so I'm curious how you guys met.
go ahead, David.
We may have different versions.
Okay.
So I'd say about maybe
Better listen closely.
5-6 years ago,
Okay.
we had a mutual friend who provided services and supports, especially for elderly community.
Okay.
And I was an independent contractor. She had hired me to come on board to sit at board meetings, just to be an observer and maybe adding my 2 cents worth, and then started
Was that paid position?
not
I wanna
sitting,
get that
not
game.
sitting on the board, but yes, as an independent contractor, yes,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
paid.
really.
I want to
was-
get that deal
Yeah,
right.
right.
I was
Go
paid by
listen.
I was paid by her nonprofit organization
Okay.
to do some consulting, some mediation, especially with vulnerable adult issues.
Okay.
And then there were a few instances where they had hired me to do a comprehensive person-centered support plan and risk management plan.
Okay.
Dave and I will talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit later.
really, I want to hear about that.
And unbeknownst to me, Dave was an independent attorney
Right.
working with her as well.
Oh,
And before COVID, we started brainstorming together. We had met together, brainstorming in terms of how we can better expand our territory in the senior community outside of assisted living facilities and nursing homes and that, but people who wanted to age in place.
I hear Jabez in there.
And then Dave and I, as we started to meet and have coffee together, we realized that he was my missing link for many years,
Oh,
and I was
yes.
his missing link. We'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
For many, many years, I had been in the process, as they say north of the border, the process
Mm-hmm.
of qualifying and screening vendors, specialists, and service providers, because I do an awful lot of referring as we build up a team to serve the families that I work with. And I could never find an attorney who had a big heart for people
yeah.
and who had a real heart for serving and ministering to families, because that's
Your heart.
basically the my why.
Mm-hmm.
And as Dave and I got to talk more and more, we realized that his dual specialization in tax law and estate planning and elder law really, really fit the gaps that were missing in my business. And then I'll let Dave share with you from his perspective
Of you.
how I was that answer to prayer for him.
What was that?
It was the fact that David does support and service plans that are designed around the person's goals and needs, and the estate planning documents that I was doing don't deal with those issues. They give someone power to act. Sometimes, but not very often, they tell them and direct them how to act
Yeah.
in case of disability for their parents or for their loved ones who have special needs.
Can you give me an example of what that means? What's that look like to you? Well, so you said that the documents would give them the power to act, but they don't necessarily tell them how.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
In a trust, typical trust, people use trust, all kinds of trusts.
Sure.
But there's certain trusts that people use to avoid probate. They're called living trusts or revocable trusts. And they're supposed to also allow for management of people's property if they become disabled.
Okay.
All right? But the trusts typically say if I become disabled or incapacitated, my trustee, who's named, has the power to act for me and to do what's advisable. And that's where it ends usually.
Because then that person doesn't know what they should be doing or
there's
how the
no
services
direction to those
that
people, for those people.
Got it.
And David creates and crafts special support and service plans for people, for their goals, for their needs, for their life. And so that was a niche or a missing gap in planning. And so what we do is we incorporate what David creates into a private plan. So like a trust, or it could be a power of attorney for disability.
So I got to believe that is, wow, a big relief. A big relief to people, because I'm just going through, like, I've been through my dad's, right? So I couldn't imagine going through something like that with a person that's got disabilities, right? Because that is just that who knows those services, who knows where to go, who knows to trust somebody. Like there's just so much more involved in that when there's that disability piece of it, I would think.
That's exactly right, Sheila. And these issues of disability come up all the time, and people are living longer today, and they ought to be able to age on their own terms, not according to what a trustee thinks is advisable.
Okay, so now I have a question here, and I'm going to put this question to Dave Sherman. So we have, you said that the trusts say what is advisable. It begs the question, how do I know what's advisable? And so that's where you come in and you're crafting that. That has to be a very difficult thing to do because it's different with everybody. So kind of walk us through how you, how just the discovery process of how you figure out what's advisable.
Well, my career spans over 30 years, and every family is different. Every family dynamic is different when they are raising a child with autism or any other type of physical or cognitive impairment. It may be a spouse who's suffered a traumatic brain injury or any other type of chronic illness, and in a lot of cases, an elderly parent who the child or children literally are doing all the caregiving. So
like
you're
an
right.
older parent with dementia or something like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, Keith, what you're saying is very true. Every family is different. Every situation is different. And this is how I approach it. I provide a free 30-minute consultation with no cost.
Wow.
I have pre-written questions that provide a lot of financial, legal, housing, and healthcare questions that provide me the information to determine what options we should be exploring together.
So you give them that questionnaire prior to your
during
meeting?
the consultation.
Okay,
during the consultation we talk about that. Most of in the majority of the times, I'm the first and only one that's ever taken the time to listen because they're so overwhelmed. At the onset or the progression of a disability or illness, they're very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're very anxious. They're very confused. They don't know where or who to turn to because this is a whole new world for them.
Well, I would think that would be even more stressful for the person if it was, let's say, from an accident, not from like childbirth, right? Because they've learned to deal with it from the time that the child was born and, their services and things like that. But, a car accident or now the dementia happens and you've not dealt with those things throughout.
Yeah, it's Friday night and everything is normal, and then you get the phone call and everything has changed.
Very true. So there have been many times where I've had to step into a crisis situation to as a consultant to determine what the best avenues are for them to take in terms of services and supports and that. And that's what I shared earlier. That's where I have to defer to other specialists and people that I've vetted out that are in my that are in my network.
Right.
Because I put my personal and professional credibility on the line when I make a referral.
Yep.
Exactly.
So my vetting process is very, very thorough. I'm looking at character mostly.
We did the same thing when we've helped people where there was an injury of a child, and suddenly their whole world changes, and their housing that they needed, they were in a 2-story. Suddenly a 2-story doesn't work anymore.
Right, correct. And to finish your question here that you had, after that, when they do hire me, I take them through a process where I interview the individual if they have the mental capacity to participate. I do a very, very full-length interview of many, many questions that revolve around all these issues. And the guardian is there, the parents, or whoever else in the family. And it's a very, very extensive interview process that covers many areas of their life. And then I also help design a risk management plan to mitigate the risk of them being abused or neglected, since they are vulnerable adults or children. So it's very comprehensive.
So when we come back, I want to talk about the continuity of service. When we come back, we got to go out and pay some bills right now. This is Our Healthy Homes. Before we get rolling, I want to give contact information out. So in case you wanted to check out some services here, if you have a need for some service, there's 2 websites. You can go to davidwicklaw.com, davidwicklaw.com, or disabilityconsultingsolutions.com. Either one will get you going in the right direction.
Can I say something first?
No.
So, like you were talking about having to be, with all those, people in the family, it's got to be hard, right? And so I think of it as when I was, when we were going to take Brisket to Crescent Cove, right, the kids' hospice, I was thinking, wow, this is going to be hard, right? Because it's kids' hospice. And I remember in like our interview, I said, am I going to get hard to this? And she said, no, you never will. You will never get used to it. So I believe it's probably kind of like the same thing. You never get hard to it. It's just your work and where God put you to be the best that you can for everybody involved that's there.
Can I address that briefly?
Yeah, please.
Before we move on. This is a calling.
Yeah.
And a ministry.
Right.
And as you and your listening audience know, there's a big, big difference.
Right.
I can't explain it. I've been in this field well over 30 years, and through the different personal and professional experiences I've had, families tend to trust and lend credibility to somebody who's going to take the time to listen, to empathize, and to help not solve all their issues, but at least bring some a better quality of life for them and their loved one. And what I have found is that when I first sit down with families, they just need to dump. They just need somebody to be a sounding board and listen. That's about 90% of the consultations I have, and that's all I do before I even ask questions.
Yeah, that's great.
And what I've learned over the years is that these families and individuals who are overwhelmed by life circumstances, whether it's something that's been chronic or, like you mentioned before, a life-altering event, are very overwhelmed. They lack support, they lack knowledge, and they lack direction. They've been marginalized and isolated from their old social group, family members. They typically know nothing. They don't have any knowledge or access to any type of knowledge or education, and they have absolutely no clear direction in terms of what the distant future is going to be. This is specifically for relates to parents who are getting older and who have children who are adults now, where they've been dependent on them all their lives. Is my son or my daughter going to be well looked after after we pass on financially, legally, and with housing? So these are the things I address, and I come in just to listen and to bring in people like David or other people that we feel are going to be at least used to provide a better quality of life, for that family.
And what I find is that when we're talking to people, when an event happens in their life, it changes them.
Mm-hmm.
It changes their worldview, and it changes how they look at things, and they're looking at things through a filter that others can't appreciate in most cases, and so their understanding of what's going on sometimes can be clouded a little bit. Sometimes it becomes more clear. It just kind of depends on what it is. That might focus them on what's truly important. When you work through, and I'll address this to both of you because I want to hear from a legal standpoint as well as from a consultative standpoint. When you've worked through a plan, so you've sat down, you've discussed it with them, you kind of see this is the services that are going to be required now and in the future. Nothing is stagnant. Mm-hmm. Things change over time. Someone may get better, they may get worse. Some additional thing might happen. One of the parties involved may disappear either through divorce or through death or something. How is that from a continuity standpoint of service? Then how long are you in contact with them and stay in service? And then what from a legal standpoint then has to be addressed in the documentation there to accommodate those changes?
Well,
great question.
Lots of things. And what I try to do in my law firm is build a flexible plan so that you can accommodate changes, because there's one thing that's certain, and that's change.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The tax laws change, the conditions change, the disability changes,
and people
family
change.
Situation changes.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
The world changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that attracted me to what David does is that part of his plan is that there are goals set forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then every year those goals are measured and the plans are tweaked or adjusted. The goals may change.
What kind of goals are you referring to?
Whatever they are.
Yeah.
Goals to become more independent in going out to the store, for example, or whatever it is.
Sure.
So it's just about a person's life.
I'll share one quick real story.
Okay.
Oh, good.
It's going to answer your question.
All right.
So I started working with this family many, many years ago. Her husband was diagnosed with ataxia, which is a neurological disorder. And over the course of years, they not only became my friends, but they had hired me to help him get on Social Security disability income because he couldn't no longer work. Helped him through that process. Then we got him on medical assistance, and then we got him on a waiver program, because with any type of neurological disorder, there's usually a progression of symptoms, and then other diagnoses come up too, and this is what happened. And what happened over time is with the support plan that I had with this gentleman, we had to continue to make revisions over time, and I had to consult with his neurologist and his primary physician, because both his cognitive and physical impairments were becoming more debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And that was affecting his wife, because as primary caregiver and having her own business, she was burning out.
Yeah.
So we were able to incorporate caregiver support and get some PCAs come in that the waiver actually are paid for.
Yeah.
And we're able to alleviate a lot of her stress and that. I asked Dave to come in and help, because what we did is that he exceeded the asset and income limit to be eligible for medical assistance. So before we even sent in the application, they hired Dave to transfer a lot of his assets into her name and into different financial instruments, so that then he would become eligible, and then that application would not be pending or declined. So we were able to expedite everything fairly quickly here. And so over a period of time, what I do is the family always has access to me. They can call me, text me, whatever. We have an annual evaluation where we'll sit down for maybe 15 minutes or a half an hour. We can do it over the phone or Zoom or in person. Say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what could we do different, or are there any goals that we want to add? Are there ones that have been achieved? And we'll go over that extensively. Now, that's not to say we have to wait a whole year. If there's things that change throughout the course of the year, we may put an addendum together and we make those revisions. And then
so in a case like that, do you then have to create legal forms, I assume, for you, David, to be able to talk to the neurologist and so forth?
Well, yeah, there's release forms that are already signed when
I
start working with them, and then Dave signs those release forms as well if he has to start, especially with the financial planner. If there's a wealth advisor that's managing investments, Dave has to speak with them because there has to be a transferring of assets.
Everything has to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And in my firm, I have what I call private client service, which is an updating service annually to look at things, and or even, I mean, if there's not an issue of care like this, it's more like related to estate planning.
Okay.
So.
And both Dave and I, and we actually have another client that we've been working on for a while that Dave brought me into, actually.
So how long was this story? How long was this client?
That one was for about 3 years overall.
What's your longest?
That was the longest for a support plan.
Okay.
But I've had other ones where they, if it's support plans, yes, for a long time. I will stay with the client indefinitely, because usually after the first year, what I do is after I hand them the support plan, and this is part of my fee, is that I will provide an hour to an hour and a half training for the primary caregivers and other families how to implement the support plan.
That's right.
Because Dave and I both believe that in empowering rather than enabling is going to shift the responsibility
to the
family.
Yeah.
So I do extensive training of how to best implement it, but then I'm always accessible for after that indefinitely.
Wow.
And they're not going to take advantage of my time usually, but we do that annual evaluation to make sure we're on course, and there'll be different caregivers and different people in the future too.
Hey, welcome back. Last segment of the program, we're talking with David Wick and David Sherman, and we are talking about planning for the things that are bound to happen. Someone's going to become disabled, someone's going to be injured, someone's going to have Alzheimer's, someone's going to become seriously ill, and we all need care and need to plan for that care. Okay, so one of the things when we went out, I said I'm going to talk about resistance. I want to talk about resistance on a couple of things. One is resistance of the family. Do you find that sometimes you just run into resistance of family who are they think they can do it themselves, or is it by the time you get to this point they're like have given up on that idea?
Well, I think there is some resistance. Do-it-yourselfers, the government programs are there. They're supposed to be accessible for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But usually what happens is they run into a problem with the program.
Okay. I mean, I feel like giving
or
up
seniors,
control.
Yeah, seniors don't, when we're dealing with parents, no one thinks about, I'm not going to become disabled.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So no one has thought about it.
That'd be me.
Yeah, right. I mean, me too.
That'd be
it's
me.
like, don't even go there.
So people don't know what's available, number one, and then no one's ever looked at those things. And
so would you, with that in mind, would you advise that when you got a guy like me who's in his, just a little bit over 40?
Yeah. Okay.
I could tell.
To actually start, looking into some of that thing and just thinking about that now?
Thinking about what type of life you'd like if you could do some of the things you do today.
Okay.
That's what I do. That's hard to do. That's why I created Who's Watching Mom with my partner, because people like you don't think this is going to ever happen.
Right.
Well, I mean, how many people just don't even think about? They have kids and they don't even have wills yet, and they don't even, so
right.
it's kind of like the same thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
Who's Watching Mom? Reason I really created that is people don't want to pay me my hourly rate to meet with them about that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But Who's Watching Mom is a nonprofit, and we do a lot of the things and talk about the issues through Who's Watching Mom to get people thinking about it and articulating what their goals might be. And then with that, then we can do legal planning.
So the next area of resistance I wanted you to address is our beloved government, and the resistance that you have to encounter on a daily basis with programs with limitations and programs that fail to work in harmony with one another and outside of the box thinking.
Well, that never happened.
No, talk about that just a little.
Do we have a hard stop at 11 o'clock tonight? So I'll address that without getting my soapbox.
Okay.
Because Trevor will not be very happy if we go over time. I'll address that.
Okay.
This is not a criticism. It's an observation based on experience. When you're dealing with government funding for different programs that we pay for through our taxes, there are certain stipulations and certain parameters in terms of what individuals qualify for. And there are certain things that are not approved. Even when a family absolutely needs a certain piece of adaptive equipment or a therapeutic treatment that is not covered by insurance, the waiver will still not pay for it. There's other times where there are severe limitations on a budget, even though an assessment has been done, and it's clearly evident that the individual needs a much higher level of care than the assessment dictates. That it's very, very difficult for families to make up that difference out of pocket,
right,
for what the doctor or attending physician has prescribed for that individual. So the limitations are very, very cumbersome and burdensome for a lot of people who are on governmental programs. Now, that's not to say these are bad programs. I'm not saying that at all. It just severely limits their choices and their options. What David and I do is we try to fill those gaps by designing a more comprehensive and detailed person-centered support plan and a risk management plan to mitigate the risk of any type of abuse or neglect of that individual. Because in the state of Minnesota, they are considered a vulnerable adult or a vulnerable child. And the state and the counties recognize that. So as Dave shared before, it's more prudent for middle America who do not qualify for medical assistance or waiver programs to have at least some type of comprehensive plan, especially at the onset of a disability or illness, so that they're not hit with any surprises later on. For those who are on medical assistance and who are getting services and supports through a waiver, it's prudent for them to also have another support plan as well that's more comprehensive, that's going to supplement what they already have and what that plan doesn't cover. Dave is going to talk a little bit about supported decision making, because that just falls right in line here with what you've asked, Keith, and it's a statute here in Minnesota that's in place.
Yeah. Supported decision making is the concept that everyone needs help in some way to do certain things. Whether that's, for example, if I go try to buy a car, fix a car, I need help. And I get people to help me make that decision by educating me. And supported decision making really grew out of a disabled person, special needs person, who wanted to live in an apartment or on her own. And I think there was a guardian who was overseeing her and trying to help her, but they wouldn't allow her to move from where she was to an apartment. And so she challenged that with the help of the bar. It wasn't in Minnesota, but and the judge made the decision that she is doing supported decision making. She's applied on her own and made decisions about different programs that she would apply for. And she's done other things with someone's help. And that gives her more independence and more control. And as a result of that case, several states, just a handful really, have adopted what's called supported decision making, so that, including Minnesota, so that someone who has some disabilities, they're impaired, but they're still capable, they still can make their own decisions. Sometimes they need help. You have to show the court, before a guardian can be appointed, evidence that you've tried these things, these supported decision-making tools, I guess, or plans, and they failed. And there was an article in the Sunday paper, I don't know, Tribune, about a girl in Minnesota who is a prisoner of a hospital, and she has had a disability for a long time, physical disability. She's a paraplegic.
Okay.
And she has a guardian. And, well, actually, she didn't have a guardian. She was living on her own in her own apartment and had care coming in, and she got sick, some infection. So she went to the hospital. This was a long time ago now. And she's able now to leave the hospital, and she wants to leave the hospital and wants to go home. And the county, paying the bills for her, has taken the position that she can't make those decisions, and they've gotten a guardian appointed to oversee her and take her ability, her authority away from her to make the decision about where she wants to go. They're recommending in the hospital, discharge people are saying, you need to go here for care, assisted living or someplace. She doesn't want to. And supported decision making is a concept that will enable a person to make their own decision and respects that decision. If I'm willing to accept a risk, why can't I?
Right.
And
with
then,
advice.
Right.
And then try that, and then if that doesn't work, then
anyway, yeah, it's a case ongoing case right now.
Oh, it is ongoing.
And she's been in this prisoner in this hospital room for going on like 20 months or something like that, a very long time.
Wow.
So
I want to give your contact information one more time, if that's okay. So
sure.
davidwicklaw.com, davidwicklaw.com, or disabilityconsultingsolutions.com. If you or a loved one has a concern or a question about any of these topics that we've discussed today, please reach out to them and sit down and have a conversation about what it is that you could do to make your family a better and a more healthy home. That's it for this week on Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194, 651-775-9194.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call